How well do you know yourself? I'd like you to take a quiz to find out a little bit about the kind of person you are. There are 6 questions. We'll read the questions together, and I want you to think about your answer to each one. Okay?
1. If you see a large insect in the house, do you scream? 2. If you have friends over for dinner, do you cook most of the food or order from a restaurant? 3. If you have a lot of work, do you do it right away or leave most of it for the next day? 4. Do you keep a secret if a friend asks you to? 5. Do you laugh if you make a silly mistake? 6. If you have a choice, what kind of movie do you prefer to watch?
Okay, so now let's compare answers and see how similar we are in terms of personality. These are my answers. 1. If I see a large insect, I scream. 2. If I have friends over for dinner, I like to cook most of the food myself. 3. If I have a lot of work, I try to do most of it the same day. 4. I keep a secret if a friend asks me to. 5. I usually laugh if I make a silly mistake. 6. If I have a choice, I prefer to watch a comedy. Sometimes I'll watch a sad movie for a good cry, but usually I prefer a comedy. Now, if you were paying close attention, you noticed that both in the questions and in the answers, we made use of the word if. Statements with the word if are called conditionals. Conditional comes from the word condition. In these statements, we have 2 parts, the condition and the result. The result cannot exist without the condition. So first you have a condition, then you get the result. For example, if I see a bug, I scream. I'm not going to scream unless there's the bug. Get it? So you have a condition, you get the result.
So here are 2 statements from our quiz. These were my answers. If I see a large insect in the house, I scream. I laugh if I make a silly mistake. We said that conditionals have 2 parts, the condition and the result. So let's find those parts in these 2 statements. If I see a large insect in the house, part 1, I scream, part 2. Which is the result? Screaming. So the screaming will not take place, cannot happen, without the condition. There must be a condition for a result. Down here, I laugh if I make a silly mistake. Here's one part, I laugh, and here's the other part, introduced by if. If introduces the condition. So making the silly mistake leads to laughter. Now, the 2 parts actually have a name in grammar. We call them clauses. And a clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb. So a clause has a subject and a verb. Example, down here, if I see a large insect, there's clause 1, subject, I, verb, see. Here's clause 2, I, and scream, subject and verb. Now, there are independent and dependent clauses. And if we come back, let's see again, if I see a large insect, I scream. The independent clause here is I scream because this thought is complete. It can stand on its own and it makes sense. This first clause, if I see a large insect, it makes sense, but only if it's part of the whole sentence. That's why it's a dependent clause. This clause is dependent on what follows, I scream. I'm only pointing these things out because it's important to understand that conditionals have the 2 clauses, and the clauses can change places. If can come first in a sentence, if can take the second position in the sentence. So either the dependent or independent clause can begin these conditional statements. Make sense? Okay, let's race ahead forward then. We know the types of clauses, we know their order, we know that the clauses can be independent or dependent. The if clause is the dependent clause, and it can come first or second in the sentence. I laugh if I make a silly mistake. Did you notice that if it comes second in a sentence, we do not need a comma? We only need the comma when we put the if clause first. Notice that again. So here we have if coming first, and here it comes second. When we write, we need a comma because the if clause is coming first in this statement. If we're only speaking, then you'll hear a pause. If I see a large insect in the house, I scream. Down here, you don't need the comma, and you won't likely hear a pause. I laugh if I make a silly mistake. Now, let's pay attention to the verb tenses that we're using here. By using present tense verbs in both clauses, we make conditional statements to show facts. For example, if you cut your finger, you bleed. General truths. If you exercise regularly, you feel better. Habits. If I order tea, I ask for milk and sugar. Common events. If it rains hard, there is flooding in this area. It's important to note that all of these examples have been real situations. So using the present tense in both clauses expresses a real situation. We can call these statements factual conditionals or real conditionals. Other verb forms. So note that when I say present tense, it doesn't just mean simple present. You can use other verb forms. For example, if I'm studying, I don't answer the phone. This is the present progressive and showing a habit. If you watch my lessons, you can learn a lot. Can is a modal, so we can also use modals in these statements to show real situations. Here, can is expressing a possibility. So let's review now. On your screen you see 5 beginnings to 5 statements. I'll tell you an ending, and you tell me which statement it completes. For example, if I say, it becomes dry, you tell me that it completes statement 2. If you cook meat for too long, it becomes dry. Here's another one. If you're lost. If you're lost, complete statement 3. You should ask for directions if you're lost. Next one. If your boss is talking to you. If your boss is talking to you. Completes statement 5. You should listen if your boss is talking to you. Another one. I can't concentrate. I can't concentrate. Completes statement 1. If I'm tired, I can't concentrate. And the last, I try to help. I try to help. Complete statement number 4. If I see someone in need, I try to help. If you're looking for more practice, go back to the beginning of this lesson and answer those 6 questions from the quiz in full sentences. You can also try adding 2 or 3 of your own questions.
Alright, I hope this first lesson has been helpful to you. Please be sure to check out the other lessons that I'll put on YouTube for conditionals, okay? Alright, happy studies.